Are you a bit of a control freak like me? Well, sometimes perfection can be the enemy of greatness, holding us back from making progress because we need everything to be just so. However, sometimes I see leaders attempt to delegate and find that the person they delegated to doesn't do a good job. And I've done this myself, and it's frustrating. The person makes mistakes, they ask repeated questions, they sometimes completely miss the whole point. And that leader ends up with the work back on their plate and resolves that, I'm just too much of a control freak to hand the work over. I need it done really, really well. And so they end up trapped. So in this episode, I'm going to go deep into this issue on how you can embrace just the right amount of your inner control freak to get amazing results when delegating, and give you some real life examples of it going well and spectacularly wrong. Welcome to De-Stress Your Business, the podcast where we show you how to get incredible results in your business without constant stress. I'm Alexis Kingsbury, a serial entrepreneur and founder at AirManual. Now, I used to be a terrible control freak. Now I'd argue I'm just a functioning control freak. If I look back over my history as an entrepreneur, it held me back numerous times. I think I've perhaps shared on this podcast that I've started at least 10, probably more like 15 businesses over the course of my entrepreneurial career. And most of them were essentially unsuccessful as businesses. They were jobs that I'd created. I would get busy and then I wouldn't be able to grow it anymore beyond me. And I would try to get other people involved, but the control freak in me was not happy with the way that other people were doing the work. And so as a result, I'd then end up back with it being just me. But it also held me back as a leader. For a period of my career, I was a management consultant working with a large firm based in London. And the feedback I got from my direct manager at the time was that I'd never be a good leader, a manager of other people, because I didn't bring people with me. And when I look at really what was meant there, it was because I just had this frustration, frankly, that other people didn't seem to be as quick on the uptake and could do things just as I wanted them done. And as a result, I'd take everything on myself. It also held me back in relationships. And I remember actually a very specific example from back when I was at school, in secondary school. Was it early on? No, it was quite late in secondary school. And I remember I had a girlfriend, and we had this project that we had been assigned, and we were quite excited to kind of work on this thing together. And we were given this sort of really expensive special digital camera by the teacher to take photos as part of doing the project. And I remember, partly because I'm a technological person and a bit of a control freak and so on, I completely railroaded her. And I was like, let me do this. And when she took photos as part of our project, I'd be frustrated that it wasn't quite done in the way that I was imagining. And so as a result, I would essentially take the camera off her or suggest, why don't I take the photos and so on. And I know that this frustrated her because I found out through her sister that she'd been complaining about it. And she didn't address it with me directly, but I realized that my control freak nature was meaning that in that moment, and I'm sure there've been many since with other partners that I've had. I'm sure that my wife would be able to helpfully identify many examples, but frankly, it's just too painful to open up right now. But I know that it's held me back in this relationship because of that tendency to step in and that reluctance to let go, because I want things done, in my view, right. I want them done the way I want them done. And when you're a business owner, when you're a business leader, there's some aspect of that is acceptable. It's your business. It's the values that you want in the business. The way that you want to work with clients is up to you. And so it's reasonable that you set that bar and that you hold people to it. The problem is when you're unable to delegate to other people because you're held back. Now, fortunately, I have been able to overcome my shortcomings and become a functional control freak. But it wasn't easy. when I first started learning how to delegate, speaking to coaches and other business owners and so on, the prevailing wisdom that I got in this was that you just have to trust people. Let them make mistakes, let them do it their way, and you can coach them to success, or if they're not the right fit, then they can leave. And I remember a particular business owner, Paul Farley, who had a series of salons and great success in that, and was also in his spare time a football coach. He talked to me about this and said, Alexis, you've got to trust people. You've got to let them do it their way, and you've just got to just let it go. Just let it go. And I found that really hard as a controversy, just this idea of letting go. But also, I saw examples in other people's businesses and in my own where we would do that, just letting go, and they would make clear mistakes. Not, oh, well, it's natural for them to do it in that particular way. Things that to me and other business leaders were obviously problems, and they would forget stuff that they should know. They would just forget, and they'd do so over and over. And it was really frustrating. Now, in fairness, in many cases, the work was often complex, and there were jobs to be done that were only done once a week or once a month or per quarter or per year. And that's hard to hold in your memory unless you're a weird geek like me. So I'd get frustrated and spend a lot of time fixing other people's mistakes. And I've seen this with other business owners, clients of mine, etc., that I've worked with, where they have this experience of trying to just let go, just trust people to make those mistakes, and they'll learn from them. But I think firstly, particularly as a small business owner, there's only so many mistakes you can afford. Often they cost a lot of money and time, and that's painful. But also sometimes that person isn't learning from those mistakes fast enough. And that all leads to taking those tasks back on yourself and ending up stuck. Now, it's not even just about the mistakes. There are some roles in which I attempted to delegate using that approach where I'd get just weak performance that didn't justify the cost of hiring. So for an example, I hired a salesperson who had got experience of working in sales, much more experience than I had. I think they got over a decade in sales experience, and they've been selling a similar product in the same industry to the one that we were selling with one of my other software businesses. And so I brought them in and took the advice, just trust them, let them do it how they're going to do it, and don't put my stamp on it and say, oh, this is the way you've got to do it, because they'll find their own way. And so I waited weeks and then months, and still they couldn't even get the results I had been getting. And I was only able to spend like a day and a half a week doing sales. And this was their full-time role that we were spending a lot of money for them to do. And I was trying to delegate in the way that I'd been taught. But after that experience, I realized I had to make them redundant. We weren't able to continue paying them without getting even break even on the revenue that they're bringing in through sales. And typically we should be looking for at least a 3 times return on that. So yeah, I had to let them go, and that was really, really painful. But I decided next time round, I'm going to embrace my control freak nature a bit more, because I felt if I can get the results, maybe I can get someone else to get the results. Now, 1 year later, we were then able to hire again. We built up enough cash and were able to cope with that, because it did set us back a lot. And we hired a part-time salesperson. That's all we could afford. And they weren't experienced in sales because we couldn't afford to pay a really experienced one. And so essentially we got someone who was like a customer support person who was up for doing essentially sales calls, and particularly sort of inbound demo calls and so on for our software product. Now, that time round, I provided the guidance. I set out, here's the sales process we go through, here's the collateral we use, here are the questions that I ask as part of each stage in the sales process, here's what I'm looking for to see whether they're a good fit, here's some of the things that I would say, or here's how I would link what we offer and how we solve it, here's how I'd position our product against their needs, and here's what I would typically use as appropriate next steps and take them through a journey to make a purchase decision. And by providing that guidance plus a training process, an onboarding process that included role plays and so on, I was able to get this customer support person that had never done sales before able to deliver the same conversion rates that I had been getting from those types of calls. And 2 years later was in a position where I was able to hire 2 full-time salespeople as a result, building on that success. And by then we'd got really well documented, detailed onboarding processes, training, guidance that had all been improved over that time. And when they then took it on, suddenly they were getting much better results than I had or than this part-time salesperson. And I empowered them to improve the processes over time. So they would identify things that could improve or if they needed to improve. But also if I spotted a better way to do something or something I was concerned about, I'd just ask a question or share an idea and then empowered them to test it, to review and change the process as they went along. Now, it means that as a control freak, I can look at any of the processes done by any member of my team and see exactly how they do it on a daily basis without anyone feeling micromanaged. They own the processes. And if something goes wrong, I can just ask questions to help identify how they should improve the process. Now, this is really important because we're not aiming to get processes and guidance 100% perfect, because doing so would take forever and you're likely that you'll never make the time to actually get that done. So instead, aim to do a good enough job to hand it over and then improve it over time to iron out the mistakes and the questions. And when I say over time, that doesn't need to be a lot of time. So to illustrate this, there's a client of ours who owns an insurance business and they're desperate to free up their time and hand over various tasks, but they were holding back from handing over those processes to team members because they hadn't got them perfect. And they just needed more time to get more detail, more perfection and so on. Now, that would mean that if they kept on doing that, they'd never get those things handed over, or they'd spend days doing that process to then hand it over and possibly save themselves hours having spent days. So it's going to take a long time to get the return investment. But also, they're not going to get it perfect. There's still going to be questions and issues and mistakes that they're then going to find even more frustrating because they've spent so much time on it. So instead, the secret to this is to document enough, like let your control freak go a little bit to go, right, here's the high level steps. Here's where it's easy to make mistakes or it needs to be done just like this and whatever, but not for everything. You know, typically it should take 15, 20, maximum 30 minutes to do that. But then the secret is the handover. It's getting someone else to do it, to follow that process, to check off that checklist as they go through with the expert, typically you, if you're the one delegating, observing, just sitting back and letting them go through it, you know, perhaps doing a screen share, or if you're in the office together, watching them do it. And the great thing is that when they hit a question that they've got for you, or they make a mistake, or they're about to make a mistake, or they make a mistake, you can just go, oh, pause. How do we avoid that in future? That's you've just asked a brilliant question. I thought I'd provided enough information in this guidance that means that that's obvious. Help me understand, where would you expect that guidance to be? Okay, great. You'd expect it to be in this step. Okay, well, let's add that in now. Here's what I'm trying to convey. Does that convey that? Does that now make sense? Okay, great. Or you're about to make this mistake. How do we provide more guidance in here on the correct VAT rate to use, or whatever it is? Like, dealing with those issues whilst going through it means that you're not spending hours or days documenting every single little thing just in case, every little click of the button. That's a common one we see, is that some of our clients, particularly when they very first start out, they'll try and capture every, click here, click here, click here, click here, and here's a screenshot. And it's slow to follow, it's slow to create, and it's not needed. Often we had a client just the other day running a workshop with one of our consultants where actually they got the high level steps and then looked around to the team and said, well, all of us know how to do basically most of, like, 9 out of 10 of the steps here. There's only one that none of us know how to do. Let's just document the detail on that. And that's done. And that was all handed over. So it meant that this particular member of accounting and bookkeeping team could go on maternity leave without that being a problem. But they didn't need to document every single step and every single detail and click, 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 click. Most of them knew how to use the tools and so on. So that's the key, is in that handover, you can get someone to take it on. And by the time that you've gone all the way through that handover, that process, and they've followed it, you can go, great, look, you can now do this. And they go, yeah, actually, it was easier than I thought. And I had a few questions, but we've answered them in the documents, so I can refer back to them so they don't have to come back to you if they forget. And as a result, I've now got this. And of course, you can review the results. You can check that you're getting the outcomes, and again, come to them if there's any issues and improve the process. But in my experience, by repeating this approach over a period of about 9 months in my first software business, I personally extracted myself from all of the day-to-day activities. And now I'm no longer required day-to-day in any of my businesses. And what's hilarious to me is I'm considered by my teams as being great at delegating to others and being a great manager and the best manager they've had and so on. The reality is I'm just a functioning control freak. I've just worked out how to get that balance right. It's not a special thing that was within me, quite the opposite. I always struggle with it, and it was just a change in my approach that got me these amazing results. So for you, I encourage you, embrace your inner control freak. Make it easy for your team to do things the way that you want them done. Now, by the way, at AirManual, if you don't know already, we've created a tool that makes it easy to get the information out of your head in minutes and hand it over to others. You can learn more at airmanual.co. That's airmanual.co, that's .co. And please go to the site, have a look, and arrange a call with a member of the team to get a free demo, to see the tool and explore what impact you could expect in your business. The people that you talk to on those calls have had lots of experience working with a variety of businesses to get incredible results, freeing up their time, allowing them to take their first holidays in forever, helping their team members be able to take time out of the business, reducing the risk, removing bottlenecks to growth, stopping repeating mistakes, getting new team members onboarded 3 times faster and with 80% less effort, like all these incredible results. So check it out. airmanual.co, go arrange a call. I promise it'll be worth it. Otherwise, thanks so much for listening. Until next time, have fun.